Alright. Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of the Yeetsydoodles podcast. I'm your host, Brendan Houghton, and on today's episode, I'd like to tell y'all just a little bit about myself, talk about a stand-up I saw on Netflix recently for a bit, and do a review for Joker. I take a TV multimedia production in the morning at a CTC, which is sort of why I'm doing this podcast. It's because this program has a lot of great resources for a variety of projects, and I had nothing better to do with my time, so I figured I'd indulge all of you with my terrible opinions. Uh, I'm also working on my YouTube channel by Twitty Boy, which doesn't really have anything on it yet, but I'll let you know when it does. In terms of things I'm actually accomplishing, I'm currently in Ovation Theater's production of Spring Awakening, a musical set in the late 19th century Germany. So, doesn't sound like the most exciting place to set a musical, but it's got some great songs in it, and yeah, for a musical. And I say that because I'm not really much of a binger of musicals. When I watch a musical, I enjoy it, but rarely do I enjoy listening to a musical or streaming it, since most music is that outside of musicals is just better. But Spring Awakening has a lot of variety in terms of genres, so I'm not bored when I listen to it compared to most musicals, which just end up reprising every good song from the first act to the second act. So it's just a testament to the versatility of the composer of the musical, Duncan Sheik. I looked him up. He's a singer-songwriter who nobody from my generation has heard of, let's be honest. But he made some popular music in the 90s. He's known for his big single, Barely Breathing. Brilliant use of an adverb there, and I think it's alright. It certainly got some happy-go-lucky production in it. The acoustic guitars are very chipper, to say the to say the least. But at the core of it is it's a pretty solid song. Now, Spring Awakening is about teenagers, students who are coming of age in a society which repress, represses knowledge and unconventional ideals. So it's basically like the musical Hair, but with a plot. Get roasted hair. Um, but yeah, I might get tired of the songs by the time we perform the musical in December. So, yeah. But, yeah, I do a bunch of other things in my spare time, but I won't bother y'all with the details of that. I'll talk about more movie-related stuff now. Um, so, considering that nobody really knows what kind of tastes I have as a film goer, or what makes me tick, is I figured I'd list off my top 3 favorite movies of all time for y'all, and what I like about them real quick, and then I'll move on. Number 3 on my list is 12 Angry Men, which is a movie about 12 angry men. Well, what do you know? I guess I'll just... but in all seriousness, 12 Angry Men is a movie about 12 Jew... Hang on, let's use Google for this one. Just gotta turn up the volume here. Google, how do you say it?
Juror.
Okay. That, but plural. Okay. So after hearing the closing statements of a court case, they have to determine whether or not a boy is guilty of murdering his own father. That, in and of itself, is a pretty solid premise for a Law and Order episode, but it's the process of 12 guys talking to each other about whether or not to deliver a verdict of innocent or guilty for 90 minutes. That exciting? Yeah, it actually is. surprisingly. And if you can't garner any amount of enjoyment out of this movie, then you are not human. This movie came out in the 50s, and most of it is just talking, but it's more thrilling than the Marvel film and DC franchises combined. That sentence probably doesn't make much grammatical sense, but I feel like the insult is understood. I don't really think that. I don't really think that. Dark Knight is pretty tense. I just wanted to trigger fellow CTC classmate Braden, since I figured he'd be listening at this point in the podcast still. Anyway, shout out to Braden Becker and the rest of the gang in the Real Talk podcast. Luke, Ben, Brady, and Michael, who manages audio duties. And that is the other CTC podcast, Real Talk. They have some pretty solid discussions about stuff. They talked about Blue Clues a couple weeks ago. Thought that was pretty engaging. Anyway, for those of you who are wondering, the difference between that one and mine is that, their podcast is one in which they talk about their different interpretations of the movies they watch and discuss them in detail, whereas mine is just an excuse for me to force feed your ears my opinions while simultaneously sounding very uneducated. But yeah, 12 Angry Men, pretty solid film, great acting, great pacing, great plot. The long takes in this movie are something to behold. I mean, for the love of God, just watch it. If you don't like it or appreciate it, then volunteer for Elon Musk's Mars expedition, because your lousy opinion does not belong on this planet. Of course, I kid. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. And in the case of you having the opinion that 12 Angry Men isn't good, you're entitled to that belief. However, I'm also entitled to have the opinion that if you have that opinion, then your opinion might just be a little bit garbage. Sort of a weird paradox. Or loop, I guess. But in all seriousness, it is a black and white movie that came out in the 50s, so if you don't like it because it's old and you're used to seeing vibrant colors and playing cripplingly addictive phone apps, then it's fine. It's at times like this where I wonder if I'm joking or if I'm really that narcissistic. Obviously, I'm joking. Or am I? At this point, I'm really just saying things. I've been talking so much about nonsense that I haven't even gotten to my second favorite movie of all time yet, which is Taxi Driver, which used to be my favorite film of all time until I saw my number one favorite film of all time. Go figure. It stars Robert De Niro, Jodie Foster, and it was directed by Martin Scorsese. It's pretty much flawless. It's about an insomniac who probably has PTSD after coming back from serving in the Marines in the Vietnam War after getting honorably discharged. This guy decides to moonlight as a taxi driver in New York. That's all I'm going to say about that. Every time I rewatch it, I just gain more and more out of the little bits in this movie. Great scenes that seem pointless within the context of the movie. I can now connect to the development and slow dissolution of Travis's psyche, who is the main character. Robert De Niro as Travis Bickle, the main character of Taxi Driver, is absolutely mesmerizing. I'm pretty sure it's his career best, unless he did a better job in The King of Comedy, but I won't know until I watch that. So I'll just move on to my number one favorite film of all time, which is Mulholland Drive, directed by David Lynch, starring Naomi Watts and Billy Ray Cyrus. I'm not kidding. He's in the movie. And let me tell you, when Billy Ray Cyrus, back in 2001, that boy was thick. I mean, man should really get into acting because, his musical output is pretty bad in comparison. I mean, I know he tried to combine the two for Hannah Montana, but I prefer to not talk about that. So Mulholland Drive is a hard movie to talk about without spoiling anything because the plot is really just that indescribable. Several points of this movie are quite ambiguous and dreamlike. At least that's how David Lynch describes it. You know, he describes it as a love story in the city of dreams. Maybe just makes you want to punch him in the face, but luckily he makes a good movie, so he's spared for another day. Of course, if I had to touch base with you on some of the themes, I would say failure, corruption, and guilt. But those mostly come at the negative points of the movie. So the cinematography is quite enchanting. One scene has terrible overdubbing early on, but it's done with purpose rather than just because it's meta. So it's neat. So if you aren't convinced about the hype I'm giving this, this is the only movie to ever make me bawl twice on rewatches. So so basically, this is my Avengers Endgame. Because you know, for anyone who listens to Real Talk and the Joker review, you would understand what that reference is. But you know, it is a weird movie. It was made by the guy who made Eraserhead and I didn't actually cry twice, cried once, but you know, but you know, it is a weird movie. It was made by the guy who made Eraserhead and Twin Peaks, which I'm sure some of you must have heard of, maybe. So if you know anything about either of those great pieces of art, then you know you're in for one heck of a treat if you decide to take it upon yourselves to watch Mulholland Drive. In terms of something normal he made Elephant Man, which is about the real-life story of a man with a disfigured head. Leave it at that. It has Ewan McGregor in it. Also, I would recommend rewatching Mulholland Drive at least once, since the story is really that ambiguous, or at least looking up things. You know, sort of like how people rewatch The Sixth Sense with the knowledge that, you know, not gonna spoil that one for those of you who haven't seen it for some reason, or even know of that twist, since it's pretty well known. But yeah, Mulholland Drive, it is pretty lit. It used to be on Hulu. Taxi Driver is on Netflix. And I think 12 Angry Men is on Amazon Prime. I'm not sure if it is still. But yeah, I saw it while I could. Alright, I'd like to talk about a Netflix stand-up special I saw recently. Bill Burr's Paper Tiger. Gosh darn it. And I'm a fan of Bill Burr's work generally. My favorite special of his was I'm Sorry You Feel That Way, which just happened to be the first one I saw by him. So, go figure. And after his last special, after I saw it, Walk Your Way Out, I started to wonder if he was starting to lose that angry man spark of his, you know. But after seeing Paper Tiger, I can assure y'all that Bill Burr is still relatively ticked off. Bill Burr's the type of comic who can be frustrated with all the external absurdities in the world, yet by the end of a set he can still somehow relate those frustrations to either a logical perspective or an internal struggle, and then somehow get away with being introspective without you realizing it until after the special is over, which just sort of goes hand in hand with the title of the special, which is Paper Tiger, which is a person or thing that appears to be somewhat threatening, but in reality, they wouldn't harm a fly. Psycho reference. Shout out to Psycho for that surprisingly creepy quote. So yeah, some of his best material, but chunks of it are a bit forgettable. But that just may be because my brain has been filled to the brim with George Carlin bits. So the fact that Bill can even manage to fit any of his in there is sort of a grand achievement. So overall, it's a pretty solid 8 out of 10. Alright, let's get to the movie of the week. what's the movie of the week? Joker. It was the movie of the week 24 days ago when it opened, but now it's October 29th. So yeah, Joker, Joker, Joker. The new controversial thing of the month after Dave Chappelle's special, which no one even cares about anymore. The last thing I heard about him was he was opening shows in Atlanta. you know, yeah, no one will care about, you know, the violence in this movie after Joaquin Phoenix inevitably wins his Oscar. So, Joker is a movie about how Arthur Fleck becomes the supervillain Joker. It's kind of like Martin Scorsese's movies Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy. And I know this because when I was watching Taxi Driver with other kids in film study, aka people who could care less about movies, they said, wow, this is just like Joker. So, yeah, take it from them, I guess. Right, plot synopsis. It's basically a movie about an aspiring stand-up comedian who works part-time as a clown and loses his sanity. It's in the trailer, so it's not much of a spoiler. It's a psychological drama, so it has a lot of great intimate moments, and also a comic book movie directed by. Sorry, I said that wrong. This is like a really stupid joke. It's a psychological drama, so it has a lot of great intimate moments, and it's also a comic book movie directed and written by Todd Phillips, who directed The Hangover. So it also has some stupid moments. Okay, let's hope I can edit that, and if not, I'll just leave this in. Just to just to say that I tried. Honestly, if Willem Dafoe gets nominated for Best Actor for The Lighthouse instead of Best Supporting Actor, I hope he wins. But if not, Joaquin Phoenix is in fact my next pick. Is his performance better than Heath Ledger's? No. I'll be honest, I'd still rather watch a compilation of Heath Ledger Joker clips than Joaquin Phoenix Joker clips. But it's not because Joaquin Phoenix is a lesser actor or anything. It's just that Joker in The Dark Knight is used sparingly in comparison to the Joker in Joker. There was not a wasted moment with Joker in The Dark Knight. Yeah. Giving a character more development and time doesn't mean a better character will come out of it. Now, before I get mugged after the podcast, for not, this movie is great, by the way. So this is just me arguing why it isn't a masterpiece. So please don't plan on robbing me yet. I'm very. All of my money is. Well, it's never on me. But there's a scene in this movie where Arthur Fleck, in reaction to something he didn't like, decides to take his refrigerator apart and sit in it. Takes like 1,000 years. Like it's like the scene goes like this. He just goes to the fridge and he's like, now let's take this bit of the fridge out, and let's take this bit of the fridge out, and let's take this bit out, and now let's sit in the fridge and close the door. If you think that's a spoiler, don't. It's like the most unimportant scene in this whole entire movie. So just don't worry about it. Besides, I honestly forgot it was even in the movie until I watched Critical's review of it. So I'll probably go into spoilers later. So I guess now is a good time to bring up the fact that I have timestamps in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. So if you want to know when I'm about to reveal more details about the events in this movie that are actually relevant to the plot and could ruin your experience if you already know they're going to happen, so the timestamps will be in the description. And if you are using SoundCloud, then there will just be separate tracks. Alright, cool. So originally I was going to talk about Joaquin Phoenix and how great he did and how committed he was and how insane it was that he lost so much weight and that we should all be thanking God that he didn't suck as much as Jared Leto, who should really just stop complaining about the direction they took the story after he almost single-handedly ruined one of the greatest supervillains of all time on the big screen. But I'm not going to do that. Anyone who is genuinely surprised that Joaquin Phoenix did a good job in this movie is just absolutely close. How would he not do a good job? On what planet was Joaquin Phoenix not going to do a good job? Yeah, it's like finding out that Rami Malek is going to play Freddie Mercury in Bohemian Rhapsody, you know? You know he's going to do a good job. It's what it really is a question of whether or not the movie, that he's supporting is actually good, you know? And rest assured, Joker is not Bohemian Rhapsody. Bohemian Rhapsody is not good. Unlike Bryan Singer, who directed Bohemian Rhapsody, Todd Phillips uses this little technique in Joker. What's it called? Oh yeah, restraint. Perhaps it's not really Singer's fault that the winner for Best Film Editing in 2018 was really bad at cutting footage together in a way that wasn't obnoxious, but since nobody likes Bryan Singer, and because Dexter Fletcher made a much better version of Bohemian Rhapsody called Rocket Man, so I doubt his input could have been that bad, I'll just blame Bryan Singer for every flaw in that movie for now. Especially since it was probably hard for the editor to make something flashy and exciting when all they had to work with was 1,000 10-second takes of turds. Not a lot of good shots in that movie. yeah. Todd Phillips' direction is, in fact, surprisingly, one of the best parts of Joker. For the grand majority of the movie, he successfully manages to communicate just how garbage the city of Gotham is with a wide array of close-ups taken from tilted angles, middle and running shots that are rarely at eye level with Joker, which only makes his actions seem more unhinged, Whereas in Punch Drunk Love, running shots during, sorry, I accidentally scrolled down. Running shots during chase scenes are almost always at eye level with the protagonist, because, Barry, who's the protagonist of Punch Drunk Love, is an empathetic hero who means well. Whereas Joker is a lunatic. And finally, the wide shots, really give scenes a greater sense of importance, than if they were handled by Guy Ritchie, who directed the 2019 version of Aladdin. Lots of bad movies coming out recently. That's how it's always been. Always been a lot of good movies, always been a lot of bad movies. Just glad that Joker's not in the group of bad movies. I already almost died from watching Joker and Suicide Squad. So it's just nice to see something competent be made. But I know everyone compares Todd Phillips' directing in this movie to Martin Scorsese's, but I think he actually picked up a couple of hints of Sylvester Stallone in this movie, particularly from his work Rocky, because one, both of them have an obsession with staircases, and two, both of them put their characters in terrible cities. So if I had to choose between the two, I would probably choose Gotham over Philadelphia. But I'm a Washington Redskins fan, so I might just be biased because I'm a little bit butthurt about the outcome of the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Not the actual outcome of the game. I wanted the Eagles to beat the Patriots. Just the outcome of the city, really. After they won for the very first time. So just not sure which city faced the worst stage of anarchy. Of course I kid. I honestly didn't even pay attention. They probably honestly just had a really good time, the mayor was probably like, let's party! And that's probably just the extent of it. I don't know. I remember the mayor going crazy. I'm just. But yeah, I haven't been to Philadelphia. All I know is that Bill Burr hates it. So I just figured I'd have a whole tangent about Philadelphia so I could just connect it back to Bill Burr. But yeah, anytime Todd Phillips does fail to connect the dots in terms of the set pieces, it's mostly just due to poor world building. Word I gotta work on pronouncing, but I'll get there. Which would actually be his fault since he also co-wrote the script. So, but at least he did one of his two tasks extremely outstandingly. I'm not saying that the writing's bad. It's very good for the most part, in my opinion. But it's weird, that this movie's come out so late in his career. It's almost as if he's been working his whole life to hide the fact that he knew anything about filmmaking. And when the moment finally came, where he can no longer hold back, uh, he finally learns to let it go. So basically, what I'm saying is that Todd Phillips is the Elsa of film directors. I hate that joke just as much as you do. Alright, before I go into big time spoilers and elaborate on the whole staircase thing, I'd just like to give a shout out to Sam Morrow, hope I'm saying his name right, for doing a cameo in this movie. He did a lovely job saying stand-up material. I had already heard from him, but I'm not joking, his stand-up routine was probably one of my favorite bits of the movie. Wish he had a greater role, Sadly, there isn't a scene where Joker kills him. That would have been swell. But I would have probably given this movie a 10 if that happened. But for now, though, it's a high 8, low 9. If you want me to stick with one over the other, I would say it's a 9. Because terrible jokes aside, this movie does succeed at being disturbing. Joaquin Phoenix's performance is hypnotizing, not necessarily terrifying, but passionately pitiful nonetheless. I have no idea what that means, and I wrote it. But considering it's the very first supervillain origin story to come to the big screen, not counting Suicide Squad because that movie sucked, it pretty much it blew it out of the park. The conclusion is satisfying, a bit unrealistic within the context of how our society functions, but satisfying nonetheless, since the world of Joker is generally engaging enough to make me forgive and even excuse some of the ludicrous plot points that occur throughout this movie. There you go. Because it's it's a comic book movie about a fictional character in a fictional city in a fictional universe where superheroes probably exist. Not quite sure of that last one, if I'm being honest, since, not sure they're going to connect this movie with the whole DC extended universe. But, just figure I'd put that in there anyway. So, after I came out of the theater, all I could say was, oh dang, that was good, bro. That was good. Said that to my mom, who also gave it a 9, by the way. So if you mothers out there who listen to the Yeetsydoodles podcast want the maternal opinion, there you go. My mom is pretty hip. That's my brief summary overall. Let's go into spoilers. Now, I know I made a big deal about the whole staircase thing, but it's rather minor. So basically, towards the beginning of the movie, Arthur Fleck almost always goes up the stairs into society. The long, hard climb to trying to be an acceptable citizen. And, he just takes it on. But as he starts to lose things, whether it's his job as a clown and his identity with his prior self, he goes down the stairs, dancing, or at least doing crazy things. He's accepting his descent into madness by going down the stairs. I mean, when he loses his job as a clown, he vandalizes a sign. You know, after he kills the guy who got him fired, he dances down a staircase. Why did I even bother finishing that sentence? I don't know. But, I mean, I'm not sure if it's, the staircase thing is subtle or not. But I can't imagine that Todd Phillips merely just has an attraction to filming staircases. Even though he is pretty good at it. Those are some pretty good shots of people on staircases. So, So Arthur loses his job after his gun falls out of his pants while he's performing as a clown at a children's hospital. The gun was given, misuse of the passive tense, but I don't care. The gun was given to him by Randall, who later rats him out, which seems a bit ironic because Randall in Monsters, Inc. is a chameleon. Bad joke, but I digress. Now, the accident is pretty reasonable. But, if I was Arthur, I would have put the gun in the wig, which didn't really seem to fit his head as it was. Well, let's be honest with ourselves, though. It was still pretty stupid. But at the same time, so is Arthur. Or at least he likes to write jokes in a rather excuse me, in a rather uneducated manner. I mean, he replaces S's with Z's. How many words have the letter Z in them? See, I'm generally not sure if I've used a word with the letter C in the entire time. I wrote a script for this. I have legitimately. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I have. Up to this point in the podcast, I have legitimately. I don't know why I'm saying legitimate. I have only used 10 Z's. Scratch that. 11, just then. But since I started this podcast, including the ones I just said. Do you know how many words with the letter S I've said in this podcast? Or at least how many times I've used the letter S? 1,214. So, Arthur, stop spelling words with the letter S. Z. Well, I just messed up that joke. Is anything I'm saying even a joke at this point? I'm starting to sound a bit like Joker. Just have to be really, really stupid to just use the letter Z instead of S. Basically in the context of Arthur being a bumbling buffoon, the plot point works just fine. However, I do have other issues. The second I found out that the Wayne family was in this movie, I thought to myself, oh, well, I guess this is going to be a Batman origin story too. And what do you know? One of Joker's goons kills Bruce Wayne's parents. Yeah. Perhaps if this was the first time in the existence of Joker, perhaps if this was the first time that his existence was what resulted in the death of Batman's parents, then I wouldn't mind, but it's not. And I'm not even just talking about, it happening in comic books. Yeah, this happened in movies already. I'm talking about freaking Batman 1989, starring Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. Except in that movie, it's actually, that twist is actually better. Because Joker, as his normal self before he became, he was known as Jack. Jack kills Bruce's parents, which is actually better than how it's done in this movie, because that makes the conflict between Joker and Batman extremely personal. Because they have a final confrontation, and the final act leads to a great payoff in the climax of the movie. Whereas in this movie, what does the whole Thomas Wayne plot line lead to? The beginning of another origin story. Honestly, I think it would have worked better if the Waynes weren't necessarily killed on screen. Or perhaps, if they were merely killed around the same time, put on TV, recently the Waynes died. It would have made the blow, a little bit less. Those are some of my least favorite shots in the movie, by the way. Just those shots of them getting shot and that stupid kid just standing there like, no, well, I guess my parents just got shot. Yeah, top-notch acting there, good. Um, I just, I just think it's a little bit much to cram in so much chaos into the final act of the movie and just have it all relate to the Joker. I mean, I know it's a fictional city, but like, come on. Any character whose world ends up revolving around them is just not that interesting, in my opinion. I mean, I know that's sort of the point of the movie. He ends up gaining attention by pursuing his criminal urges. But they just couldn't be bothered to just not have that nonsense in the movie? I mean, in all honesty, if we really needed this whole plot line to justify as to why Joker killed his mom, finding out that, oh, Thomas Wayne is my illegitimate dad? Oh, wait, he's actually not. My mom lied to me. In fact, I was adopted. I'm gonna kill her. If we needed to justify that plot line, then I think that his illegitimate dad, who wasn't actually his illegitimate dad, should have been Frank Murray, the talk show host. Because A, it would have made his death more impactful, and B, it would have made Joker's relationship to Frank Murray even more complex. Whereas in this movie, the one we're stuck with now, we just got two relationships where one is rather satisfying but a little bit undeveloped, and the other one is just unnecessary. Because I just came up with a better plot just now. So, or maybe it probably would be bad. If I wrote it, if they wrote it, it would be good. But if I wrote it, I'd mess it up. But the idea is what I'm suggesting. By the way, I got upset about this stuff after I watched the movie, but nevertheless, it's hard to deny that elements of this movie are just a tad bit predictable. But oh well. But honestly, that's genuinely the biggest issue I have with this movie. I have this small nitpick during the scene where Joker kills Randall with scissors. The scene starts with them knocking on Joker's apartment door, and then cut to Joker picking up scissors. He opens the door. It's Randall and the Tiny Man. That's apparently what I looked it up. That's what they want to be called. So I'm just gonna say that from now on. Randall starts talking about how the cops have been looking for him, and then there's a cut to the scissors, and then cut back to Randall talking, and Joker kills Randall. I was just running the sequence by you again since I know it for myself. Knock on the door, cut to Joker picking up scissors. He opens the door, it's Randall and the Tiny Man. Randall starts talking about how the cops have been looking to him, cut to scissors, cut back to Randall talking, and Joker kills Randall. So notice anything that might happen just a little bit unnecessary within the... shout out to Mr. Frank. Top-notch yell there. So, do you notice anything that might be slightly unnecessary within the sequence of those shots? This really is nitpicky, but it's the second cut to the scissors, between Randall talking, and then, scissors, and then back to Randall talking, and then Joker kills scissors, I just think it's unnecessary, because one, considering that the audience already knows that the Joker picked up these scissors and is hiding them behind his back, we don't need to see another shot of it. And two, cutting to it in the middle of Randall talking removes some of the tension and surprise from Randall's death, which is still shocking, just based on the basis of Phillips' bold direction. But imagine if it was just Randall talking, and all of a sudden Joker just starts stabbing him, rather than if it were to just cut back to the scissors. Scissors, snip, snip, cut. Even when I'm trying to offer constructive criticism, I still resort to making terrible jokes. But, it sort of seems weird that they do it then in the movie, because, the point in the movie where Joker kills, the three guys, they don't cut back to him, pulling out the gun. It's just him on the ground getting kicked, and then it cut back to the guys kicking him, and then all of a sudden they just get shot in the head, and then we cut back to Joker, and it's like, oh, it's the gun. Oh, wow. Of course. That makes perfect sense. And even then, that's an even longer test of memory endurance, Like several scenes, the scene in which he got fired, that's the last time we saw the gun. He hasn't gotten rid of it? That is interesting. Just, just, just a little bit weird that they didn't use that same technique then, you know. But yeah, it has been 2 weeks since I saw the movie, so any other issues I had with it have either been forgotten or just aren't that important to me. Speaking of that scene, though, there has been some controversy surrounding the movie's rather graphic, inappropriate, and obscene depiction of tiny people. So after Joker kills Randall, he excuses Randall's tiny friend out of the apartment, but when Randall tries to leave, he can't open the door because he is too tiny to reach the spring latch above the doorknob. I had to look that up, but that's probably not even the right term. But it's basically just like that. I hate the mic, sorry. It's basically just the thing that's like. That sounded more like a gun than like whatever. And I dare say that this is a rather offensive portrayal of tiny people, and a much more disingenuous depiction of the struggles of being too short or too tall compared to tall girl, which truly had the best intentions. I can't take that seriously. But in all seriousness, isn't it weird that no one has complained about that scene in this society? Yeah, probably because there are people on this planet who still have a sense of humor. But also, in what other way was that scene supposed to go? Is he supposed to grow 2 feet taller or jump like Michael Jordan and open the door that way? No. Don't even know why I'm arguing about this scene. Does anyone even care? I just find it funny. Yeah? No controversy about it. Nothing. I thought, yeah, everyone's complaining except for them. Except for tiny people. They don't care. They're like, that's pretty funny. Yeah, that's right. We can't reach. Heck yeah. Put that on the screen. If I had to guess what they're thinking. But yeah, I do have a theory though. Yeah, that if they even make a movie that's even connected to this one, that guy could be the Penguin in the next movie, and I pretty much only have him being a tall guy to base that on. But sorry, a tall guy. Thinking of tall girl. Sorry, a tiny guy. But yeah, they already did it with Danny DeVito, and we can do it again with Leigh Gill. That's what the name of the guy is. And the Oscar goes to Leigh Gill. Not a very theatrical name, I reckon. Still did a lovely job, though, being short and all. Now, the actual controversy. Joker incites violence, which just sounds like clickbait, and it is. Anyway, it's been 25 days as of the recording of this podcast since the movie came out on October the 4th. Nothing has happened. Not even a theater shooting. Or at least I tried to look it up. Couldn't find it. Joker's going to incite violence. Joker. Oh no, it's going to incite violence. 25 days later, it's one of the highest grossing. Might be the highest grossing R-rated movie. It is. It is the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time. You'd think something would have happened by now. But yeah, nothing has happened. Yet. And I say yet, just on the off chance that some sort of maniac goes wild months from now and somehow gets associated with the movie. But, in all honesty, I think all these articles, these complaints, it comes down to the form of media from which the story was presented. If you have even the slightest shred of knowledge about comic books, you would know that much more violent, graphic, and bloody stories have been portrayed before, at least in comic books. Especially in the Batman canon, In fact, I would consider Alan Moore's The Killing Joke to be a lot more disturbing than this movie. Albeit that one did get controversy. But, probably because that one was actually shocking. But, I mean, do you hear people complain about comic book stories and the way that they complain about Joker? No. And do you know why? It's because they're comic books, and comic books aren't as popular as movies. And since movies can reach a wider audience, Stupid mouse. It scrolled up instead of down this time. And since movies can reach a wider audience, yeah, people believe that it's more likely for violence to occur. Well, of course, Brendan, the people who are complaining, after all, are film critics. But, they're just a loud minority, which we should be thanking God for that. I mean, imagine if we actually listened to those people. Oh, yeah. Right, here's another one. So, apparently, black women are poorly represented in this movie. We have Arthur's girlfriend. His friend that he hallucinates is his apartment neighbor who he hallucinates is his girlfriend. The bus passenger, his therapist. Yeah, the bus passenger, the one that's like, yo, stop bothering my kid. That one. His therapist and a psychiatrist who he kills. Now, saying that a couple of these characters inadvertently helped to plant a couple of bad seeds of bad thoughts in Arthur's mind, not a bad statement in and of itself. Sophie's first interaction with Arthur, if that's her name, is, her first interaction with him is all he needed to believe that someone was encouraging his actions. And, the rest of those characters either fired, killed, or just not in the movie anymore, really. Now, by that logic, that the characters in that demographic were written to be rubbish, just think about the other demographics. The white women are even worse. Joker's mom is terrible. And that old white lady on Frank Murray's show, she gets traumatized. And Bruce Wayne's mom dies. At least, they die. Or they're traumatized. It's even worse for them. And then there's the white guys. White guys, for crying out loud, were terrible in this movie. Feels weird associating myself with a color for some reason. But we stink in this movie. Frank Murray, his show is rubbish. The only likable white guy is a tiny person, Sam Morrill, and freaking kids. Those are the only demographic of people who are even remotely likable in this movie. The kids. Except for Bruce Wayne. But that's because he's a bad actor. But could it just be that this movie is a character study by any chance? At the very least, a comment on society. Adult society, and how when we grow up, we just tend to not care about other people as much. I don't know. I didn't really write this far in the script yet, but, who knows, really. Anyway, a discussion about this movie that could have been had has been shrouded with, news articles and drivel. That just doesn't matter anymore. Alright, before I stop talking about this movie, one little theory I have, or at least one little thing that I think could have been in this movie. Pretty sure Frank Murray could be in the mafia, or at least sort of forced his way into the entertainment industry. And it might just be because Robert De Niro, I just saw Goodfellas, and, he was a gangster in that, but whatever. Alright, that was a lot of pretentious anecdotes. That's not the right way to use the word anecdotes, but I don't care. But, so that's my little spoilery review of Joker. Right. So next week, I am going to be talking about The Lighthouse, which I saw recently. Surprise, surprise, it was fantastic. If you decide to watch it for yourselves, I'm just going to warn you, a little bit on the ambiguous side. If you've seen the horror movie The Witch, then you'll pretty much know what you're in for in terms of how the guy sort of constructs his story. But, it's very engaging. Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe do a fantastic job. I would recommend watching it. One of my favorite movies this year, if not my favorite. Still, the year hasn't finished yet. But it's probably my favorite of the year, if I'm being honest. But yeah, The Lighthouse. Go see it. Very. I don't like to use this word often, but it is weird. I won't use that next week when I actually summarize the movie. So yeah, thank you so much for listening this far into the Yeetsydoodles podcast, episode 1, introduction, Bill Burr, Joker. I hope you tune in next time. Alright. Yeet!